Then let's move on to the second title.
Let's Build a Dungeon by Spring Loaded. Here we go.
Konnichiwa! Watashi no namae wa James Udes. I'm going to take you on a tour of our studio, making a game about a studio making a game. Spring Loaded! In our game, Let's Build a Dungeon, you get to manage a team of developers, much like I manage this team of developers. They draw monsters, dungeons, and buildings in order to make an amazing RPG, just like players in our game also get to make an amazing MMORPG. These developers get paid with real money, unlike the developers in the game that you pay with virtual money. Look, this is Caesar. I hired him for my studio, but you can hire him too, or someone just like him to work in your virtual studio. These are our old games. This is our new game, Let's Build a Dungeon, which of course is our best game. Thank you for including us in the Sense of Wonder Night at Tokyo Game Show. It is a great honor.
Hello, I am James, as you just heard. I am the designer and creative director at Spring Loaded, a company in Singapore, and I'm here to talk about Let's Build a Dungeon. So after our last game, Let's Build a Zoo, I wanted to make a game that focused on one of my passions, RPGs, but I also wanted to do something that was really refreshing and new, and something that hopefully hadn't been seen before. So I thought about what it is that all of us as game developers know better than anything else, and that's game development. And I asked myself, why is there no simulation game that delves into the deepest possible aspects of our industry? There's nothing that is hyper-realistic, that explores what it's like to employ people, come to shows like this one, deal with people like Microsoft and Nintendo, deal with just all the stresses of user acquisition, everything to do with our industry. So obviously, you can't just have a game about a game studio, you have to build a game. So our game starts out focusing on the concept of you making levels and building quests and building a giant RPG. And into that world, simulated players come in and explore it. It can be real players as well online, but it's initially just simulated virtual players. How would you know if your game was actually well designed? Well, again, we just look at our real jobs. We use analytics to determine what things are happening in your world. What quests are people dying in? Where are they dying? How long are they taking them? So, for example, if you have a quest to beat a giant boss, but people are dying in the first room, being killed by a really terrible skeleton, you can lower the damage on that skeleton. You can move them. You could increase the damage that the swords do that the people are holding, the heroes themselves, but obviously doing that will mean that the characters become stronger and throws off the entire balance of your whole game. So this analytics system shows heat maps and basically everything that you could ever want from an actual development environment, but also allows you to react to players in real time. If you, for example, make a quest that can't be finished, players will respond by leaving you a bad review. So that's the game part. But then the second layer of the game is actually running your studio. So here, you employ people, you work your way through milestones. As mentioned before, you have things like proper user acquisition, where you build advertising campaigns and use channels like Reddit and Twitter and other things like that to kind of get your players. And if your rating is better on Steam, our virtual Steam, of course, it becomes cheaper to actually attract players. It's such a great game to make because literally every day when I'm at work, everything I do, I'm just like, oh, I haven't put that in the game yet. I'll put it in the game. So obviously, what's the point in building a game and running a studio if you can't even play your own game? So we actually allow you to drop into the world, run around, experience your quests, and experience all the stories that are written by your team of designers, which is, I guess, me, but in the game, you have a team of designers. So yeah, we actually have a branching path quest selection where we have 5 full RPGs, and you can dynamically bounce between them based on your choices. So for example, you might want to build a RPG entirely focused on cooking and running your restaurant. But then you decide to throw one quest in where someone can go out and do some combat. you'll see that your guy, instead of buying his ingredients, he might just wander off into a dungeon and kill monsters to collect his ingredients. So beyond that, if we build all this, what's the last step of making our game a real simulation of the entire industry? It's building a game engine. So actually, as you develop your studio, you can unlock tools that allow you to go in and do dialogue editing, draw pixel art, build logic trees, and make any game you want. Our feature set at launch will allow you to actually do a remake of a game like Skyrim, for example. And we plan to expand beyond that, looking at classic games like Space Invaders and Bomberman, and going even in other directions that people wouldn't expect us to. And in the end, 10 years down the line, for example, we expect this to be a fully featured game engine in which you can make any pixel art game you want. And we're approaching it from a side of how do people think they make games rather than looking at programming as a kind of, if you look at something like Roblox, for example, you have to script your conversations, but we build a conversation editor. Logic, we approach it from the way the gamer would think about logic rather than the way we've all been broken by being programmers. So yeah, that's our game, in a game, in a game, in a game. Thank you.
Thank you very much. ありがとうございました。
Thank you very
なんかもう
much.
ジェームスさんはもうゲームを作ることそのものを楽しんでる感じ
So
がし
the
ましたね。
James is really enjoying making games, so we felt that. So let's hear from Takashi-san. Yes. So I think this is the first game development simulator. So it's a first of its kind in the world. So it takes time to feel sense of wonder playing this game. So when I felt a sense of wonder was this moment when, so I received the email from the boss, investor. So that was when I felt a sense of wonder.
I don't think that normally gives people a sense of wonder. That gives me a sense of terror and horror.
So I received the email and I laughed and I shook the hands. So that was the best moment playing the game.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
はい、ありがとうございます。Thank you。それではもう一人聞いてみましょう。片山さん。
Now let's hear from Katayama-san. Yes, thank you for the presentation. So this game is new and there are multiple factors. You can run the game studio and also you can play the game. So there are two components in one game. It is really new. And I have one question. So there are some people who want to make a game, but people can actually make a game playing this game. But what if the game studio goes bankruptcy or unsuccessful? And in that situation, what should we do? How should we resolve the challenge? So if the studio is unsuccessful, what should we do?
So there are many things you can do. So the game is actually online, so you can play with your friends and build a game together and collapse your companies into one. So we actually have all these elements. I'm going off topic slightly, where you can build your world and you can be throwing monsters at other players who are other humans whilst you're building it. But if that is a bad game design, which I would argue it is, you can run out of money and your investor will come to you and basically do what real investors do. He will make your terms worse. So he'll be like, oh, I was taking 50%, now I'm taking 70%. Now I'm taking 80%, now I'm taking 100%. Now I'm taking your firstborn child. And so it will just get more and more ridiculous, the things that you lose to your investor, who will keep on funding your game. But it will be impossible for you to make profit. But you can just have fun making the game, just being like all other indie devs, never making any money.
リアルな話ですね。
面白い話。耳が痛いです。
はい、ありがとうございました。
That's really interesting.
はい、
Yeah.
ありがとうございます。Thank you so much, James. Thank you. Let's build a dungeon でした。
It was Let's Build a Dungeon. Thank you.
はい、続いて3作品目です。3作品目は From Japan on Life Motion Learning Life Evolution by Attracture. Here we go.